Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode 47 of Be With Me in the book of 2 Corinthians. We are in a masterclass of Paul's teaching about church authority. So it's the use of Christian authority in the church. And we're going to answer the question, because this is what the Corinthians keep asking chapter after chapter, which is, who is the boss of me? And which of us doesn't ask that question? So we're going to start in chapter 13 of the book of 2 Corinthians. Now, it's the last chapter in the book of 2 Corinthians, and the last part of it is going to be his final greetings. But before he gets to the final greetings, he starts with final warnings, and this is all about authority. So listen in here. This is from 2 Corinthians chapter 13. This is the third time I am coming to you. Every charge must be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. I warned those who sinned before and all the others, and I warn them now while absent, as I did when present on my second visit, that if I come again, I will not spare them. Since you seek proof that Christ is speaking in me, he is not weak in dealing with you, but is powerful among you. For he was crucified in weakness, but lives by the power of God. For we also are weak in him, but in dealing with you, we will live with him by the power of God. That's verse 4, and I'm going to skip down to verse 10 because it's a nice summary. For this reason I write these things while I am away from you, that when I come, I may not have to be severe in my use of the authority that the Lord has given me for building up and not for tearing down. That's a great summary verse of what Paul is meaning to say about boldness. All right, so the question we're starting with is, from a person in the congregation, which is what the Corinthians are asking, is who is the boss of me? Now, the way Paul started, he's pulling out a stick here, or at least showing the rod of authority, but he doesn't start there. He starts back in chapter 10, says, Paul, myself entreat you by the meekness and the gentleness of Christ. I, who am humble when face to face with you. So Paul starts with meekness and gentleness and humility, really just like Christ did. But then he recognizes that this is all not just rainbows and puppies here. He says, I beg of you that when I am present, I may not have to show boldness with such confidence as I count on showing against some who suspect us of walking according to the flesh. For though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but we have divine power to destroy strongholds. So Paul, I think, is doing like this two sides of the authority coin. One is, on one side of the coin is, I lay down my humility and gentleness and service, and I'm for you. In chapter 12, he says, I seek not what is yours, but you. For children, it talks about the love of parents for the children. Then he says, I will most gladly spend and be spent for your souls. So that's the posture that he comes with. The other side of the coin is, hey, we're at war, and sometimes boldness must be established. And I'm the guy to do it because I occupy this office of apostle and pastor, or at least founding pastor of this church. All right, so the questions that we need to ask are, do you want a leader who doesn't start with humility and gentleness and weakness and imitating the way that Christ does? Obviously not. Let's get a leader that does that. Second question, do you want a leader who isn't for you, like it says in 12:15, like the love of a parent who feels your pain and rejoices when you rejoice, who is spent for your souls, who is seeking your best? We see it here today that Paul was given to the church, and leaders are given to the church for their building up. Also says that in 12:19. It's in the sight of God that we have been speaking in Christ, and all for your upbuilding. So don't you want a pastor that is for you? And then third question, don't you want a leader who understands that it is a battle and it is a war and there is a conflict of ideas and people need to be brought to the pointy end of conviction every once in a while? And then finally, don't you want a guy who is ready and able to be bold? Now, not domineering like it says in 1 Peter and the qualifications for this. You don't want someone that this is the normal way of doing business, but is willing to do it. That is, to stand against the ideas and people that seek to destroy the true church. All right. So in conclusion, let's remember that there were and are enemies of the church of God, and many of them come from within, and some wear many faces. Peddlers and the sexually immoral and the self-justifying and those who may using authority in wrong ways. Second point is authority can be done right. It starts with humility and gentleness and meekness, but it is also willing and able to be bold and occasionally, as Paul says here, do I have to be severe? Thirdly, the motivation. And so why is there authority in the church? Because it would be chaos without it. But the point I want to make is that it is used to build up, not tear down. And so every person must ask, who is the boss of me? And what kind of a person do I want to be the boss of me? Someone that's wants to build me up, someone that's for me, someone that is spent for me, someone that occupies the position of the truth, someone that starts with humbleness, meekness, gentleness, but the final point today, and this is what Paul says, someone that is willing to be severe, someone that is willing to be bold when it is necessary. Who is the boss of me? That's the kind of person I want over me in the church. Thanks for attending the masterclass from Paul.